Hey, Frank, it's great to see you again, and thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Mr. Mayor, how are you? How you been?
I'm doing good. It's great to see and hear from you. Why don't you
You
tell the
too.
audience a little bit about you and your company?
Sure. So actually, I have a few businesses now. We just keep expanding. What we've found ourselves doing now is we're brand building. So when you and I first met many years ago, Connecticut Gutter was my one and only LLC, and we have expounded on that. We found that it was a niche business, and we needed to get away from that or continue to build other niche brands. And so what we've done is now rebranded, and we're in the process of doing this. But we're calling ourselves HeneghanServices.com, and that is our mother company. And then we have a number of brands underneath that umbrella. Connecticut Gutter is one; it's still our largest. We are into another business called Connecticut Stormwater Authority, and that business is involved in the design, the installation, and the inspection of underground stormwater systems. So it was sort of a natural flow for us to move into this business because rain gutter systems have downspouts that tie into underground drainage. You also, that type of gallery of drains may also have yard drains or trench drains or curtain drains around the property, but they all send the water to the same place, which is generally a Coltech chamber. So we are hot and heavy in that business. It's about 8 months now, but we've made some incredible inroads with that company. We've connected ourselves with Coltech, which is the founding father of plastic stormwater technology. They're right in Brookfield, Connecticut, and we're doing big things with them. We have another brand called Connecticut Claim Contractor. I've been involved in insurance claims for years. I'm 17 years in business now. So we find ourselves all helping the homeowner through an insurance claim. And there's a number of things we do. It's a relatively turnkey operation. And what we do is mitigate. So let's say you have a roof leak and your ceilings and your walls are wet and you have water in the basement. Well, all of that water obviously needs to be pumped. Any drywall or anything that was put in contact with the water needs to be mitigated, cut out, removed from the house. You need to run dehumidifiers and fans. So we do all of that. We have all that equipment in-house. We also build insurance estimates. So we work directly with the adjuster. One meeting, multiple meetings. I mean, I've successfully won insurance claims where we do such a thorough job on the front side with our inspection and our estimate that we don't even need to, the insurance carrier doesn't even send the adjuster out. They go off of our paperwork, our documentation, our photo evidence, our insurance estimate done in Xactimate, which is the same software the insurance companies use. And they sign a check. They write a check to the homeowner and put us in action. And so obviously, as contractors, we also do the reconstruction. So if it was interior damage, we put the house back together. If it was a roof, we replace the roof, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have two other brands. It's been 3 years now, but we have moved back to Greenwich. So we have a great presence in Greenwich. I grew up in Greenwich, so I know a lot of folks down here. So we put together two local, or what we call hyper-local brands, one being Greenwich Roofs, which rounds us out and complements all the roofing we've been doing for 17 years. If we can, we'd like to stay local, work in the neighborhood, instead of running all over the state. And the other hyper-local brand is Greenwich Soft Wash Services, which is an interesting brand. I don't know if are you familiar with soft wash services and that buzzword? So it's relatively new as far as a buzzword, finding it on the internet, although it has been around for quite a while. But in the old days, I say old days, a decade ago, if you need something washed, your contractor shows up with a high-pressure power washer that he gets from Home Depot or a supply house, and the device shoots 3,500, 4,000 PSI pressure, and man, you could use these devices and strip paint off of a deck or prep a house siding for paint, or it's almost like shot blasting rust, or anything that's sidewalks, driveways. Hey, get the power washer out. Well, people quickly learned, especially the hard way, which is hiring chucking a truck, a contractor that's somewhat fly by night, doesn't really, isn't necessarily well-rounded, but he's conscientious and has the energy and comes in and makes the sale, and you hire him and he power washes the house. Well, taillight warranty, the guy's down the street, you go out the next day in the sunlight and look at the house, and you got all kinds of wood fibers showing and ruts in the siding because he just used too much pressure and stripped the paint, totally did the opposite of what you intended. You wanted to restore the house and beautify it, and what he did is damage it. Okay, so what we've gotten into is what's called soft wash. And soft wash is very, very low PSI, a scientific almost blend of chemical in the right concentrations depending on what you're applying it to. And then there's technique. So you're using low pressure and you're gently trying to motivate and wash surfaces. One in particular, you take a pressure washer on a roof. Granulated asphalt shingle is the majority of what homes have for roofs. Right. And I said granulated, it's little tiny granules that are adhered to the shingle. And that's what protects the shingle from UV light, from the weather, from bird droppings, from anything that may make contact with the roof. And, you get now we're into 50-year shingle, but 25, 20, 30-year shingle back in the day. You take a power washer on a roof, and I've seen a lot of folks do this. You're knocking granules off the shingle, and you don't realize it. You might be removing some black mold or some algae, some lichen, and aesthetically, at a glance, it looks like you improve the look of the roof, but you just knocked all these granules off, and you greatly reduced the life expectancy of that shingle. So soft wash is critical for applications like granulated asphalt shingle, where you want to restore the roof, you want to beautify it. Maybe the roof's fairly intact and you're not ready to spend the big bucks to replace the roof, but you have some staining and marking on the roof and you want it gone because it's really affecting curb appeal. Soft wash services is perfect for that. So we actually got into this in the last year, where we went out and bought professional equipment and put it in a brand new Mercedes Sprinter van and really, got the right professional equipment on hand to do this. Right in time with, oddly, it was, with the coronavirus pandemic, where cleanliness is paramount. Everybody's interested in sanitizing and viricides and, just kind of giving everything a quick blast, or not even a quick blast, a multiple blasts. So we've taken the same equipment. Yes, we clean roofs and siding and decks and sidewalks, but we've taken the same equipment and worked at child care centers that are, a little panicked or a lot panicked about the playscapes and, the toys outside, and maybe it's a good idea to come in with viricide and give it a good blast. Wow. The other device that we use with the soft wash is high heat. So we have equipment that on demand heats water to 170 degrees. So that'll kill a virus, certainly bacteria, any kind of growth. Very, very helpful, or even motivating like bubble gum off a sidewalk or wax. It's a great way to clean with heat. So we do all of those things. We have these 5 niche brands, and we've created this umbrella we're calling Heneghan Services. And we're fast and furious with developing these brands. Each brand has their own website, very deep depth content on social media. If you go to Instagram, each brand is segregated and unique on social media, tons of content. We have a social media, digital media manager now full-time. Oh, wow. And he runs around from job site to job site all day collecting content. He puts a drone up in the air. So we're brand building. We have been in rapid fashion for the last few years. And then this pandemic hit, and I think that's what prompted this phone call today with you and I. And you're probably very interested to see how we're handling it and what we're doing in light of the last few months.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to tell our viewers, this all started because Frank looked up on the internet any words that he could use for his website and found Connecticut Gutter that no one had taken. Of all you entrepreneurs out there, if you think Frank was lived this since he was 9 years old, no, he was an entrepreneur, and he found the name that was available and then decided to learn the business, and look where he's been now. So I think that's always a great story to tell. So
it's funny to reflect back on that. Absolutely, and it's interesting you retain that in all these years. But yeah, it's sometimes you got to reverse engineer this stuff. You know, as an entrepreneur, you might be passionate about something, or you might be good at something, but from a business perspective, it might not be the best route for you because there might not be a market, or you might have way too much competition, or like you said, domain names or internet real estate is taken up, and there is no place for you without, fighting a whole sea full of fish for business.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to find the opportunity first, and then figure out how to do that work. That was definitely me with rain gutters. I mean, I was in construction as a kid and was mechanically inclined and enjoyed it, but I didn't come from a rain gutter background. I just found a niche that looked like it was lackluster, didn't have much competition, and we went for it.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. So, all this craziness going on, how are you handling your team, or how are you and your team doing?
That's a great question. I thank you for asking. We're doing great. Actually, everybody's happy and healthy and out there working. We had like a 2-month freeze. March and April got really wonky and sideways, and I think marketplace just didn't really know what to make of it and what to do. And do I sit on my money? Do I spend? What do I do? Is it normal activity? Normally, March, April is when we see a big surge, or the cold months, January, February, and most of March is usually flat. Mm-hmm. It's just too cold, or things are frozen up, and homeowners are not outside. They're not looking at their home. So, March and April were just atrocious, but as an entrepreneur, and I guess that's the best way I define myself, is I'm an entrepreneur. It's not just being a business owner, because you have to make moves. You have to change gears. You have to, morph to accommodate what's being thrown at you. So in that respect, I had to make some changes, and I'll tell you what we did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, once we got outside of April, things were good for us. We were blessed and lucky for the most part, exterior contractors. We do a lot of inside work, but for the most part, 80% of our work is exteriors. So what we found was, with making corrections for safety and accommodating comfort levels for the homeowners, and adjusting for supply chain breaks that we've experienced. In fact, we're still dealing with them almost mid-July here, where some materials I just can't get, or it takes forever to get, or my suppliers, again, supply chain's broken, so they can't get they can only get a truck to halfway from the manufacturing plant to our location in Connecticut. And then I find myself, in the last 2 months, I'm driving down to Perth Amboy, New Jersey for material, which I never had to do, routinely, like once a week, because I just can't get it. They could make it, but they can't get it in a tractor trailer for whatever reason. So to answer your question, supply chain was broken right away, and it still is suffering. So we've had to make some changes to that, which is basically scramble and just not take no for an answer, and push hard and wait in lines, and source material like we've never had to before, just to make sure we get it so that we can deliver to the consumer. Obviously, safety is a big one. Immediately, everything, as you know, I mean, we all were trying to get N95 masks, everything cleared out, disappeared off the marketplace. Amazon Prime cleared out, the 3-month backlog. So we had to get creative. We turned around to a great little company, a startup in Fairfield that is into marketing, merchandise, and print and embroidery, that type of stuff. And so they made masks for us, custom masks that were sublimated. It has our logo on both sides. It was kind of a cool little venture, because not only are we branding as we're running around, but we look professional on the job. The customer is satisfied that we're playing it safe. But I needed other things. I needed respirators. Actually, I was on a much needed family vacation. I was in Hawaii when all of this broke. And I was in Maui with my newborn and my wife. And, I tried to keep cool, but I was so far from home and I had to travel to get home. And as an entrepreneur, I fired up the laptop and just started ordering Viricide as much as I could get my hands on. I knew we were going to need it. So I think I procured enough for about 1,000 gallons worth of product. And we still are sitting on some, but we immediately were able to use it as soon as I got home and was able to put my crews in gear.
Mm-hmm.
So, the other thing is making changes in how we work.
Right.
My estimators are out in the field all day, and they're generally alone. So that was okay and safe for them. But office staff, they worked remote for 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Yep.
So that sort of changed things as far as how we do business. But I'll tell you what, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think as a business person, I think that this sort of is speeding up how the big companies, forget about us little guys per se, but how business in general is going internationally. Anywhere you are, brick and mortar is kind of on its way out. You don't necessarily need it. You don't need office spaces. And I think this was like a litmus test on how it's going to go and what the future holds. And I think a lot of companies open their eyes. But we know now, we are, mid-July, a lot of companies are saying, hey, we're furloughing 40% of the company, or we're bringing people back, but work from home and indefinitely. We don't know when we want you back in the office. We have a very good client in Rowayton, and I won't mention their name because they're a hedge fund, but they have a beautiful campus and we do a lot of work for them, and they're still not in the office.
Yeah.
And they don't know when they're going to be. They're talking September, October. That has been a good thing for us and for the facilities, the building and ground staff there, because guess what? Nobody's in the office. Now we can get to all of these pesky projects,
right.
Like masonry restoration and stuff where we need to shut down power in one location or put up scaffolding. They immediately started green lighting projects that have been on hold, because with such a high touch environment, when business is as usual, where they're trying to woo multi-million-dollar investors, they invite them in and bring them to the facility and tour them around.
Right.
Beautiful. And they don't want to see contractors making noise and running machines. So, it's so weird how it sort of twisted up how we do things, but plenty of shifts, and we're still sort of shifting. And again, supply chain, breaks in the supply chain, some of them haven't been repaired. That's driving me crazy, but the show must go on, Tom,
Yeah, no, I'm seeing a lot of the supply chains. I work with a bunch of service industry, and the HVAC,
Sure.
Problems with that as well. That seems to be a bigger and bigger challenge, until the factories get back to work. But I think that's the key, is to plan ahead and keep being, 2 steps ahead of. You don't know what you're ahead of, but at least be ready to move. And I think you do a great example of that. Has there been any pivots in your target market or your sales or your revenue or expenses?
So, I think that I think what's happening, it's very obvious. 2020 is kind of, everybody's already writing it off as a wash. We lost a lot of money with those 2 months of the freeze up. But the way I looked at it was, let's see how the market plays out. Right now, what I think is everybody's staying home. Nobody's really taking or a lot of folks are not taking a vacation or deciding, you know what, let's just beautify the home. Let's get that pool that we always wanted to put in, or let's improve on the landscape, or let's finish the patio that we've been stalling on and make it beautiful so we can camp out at home and stay put and enjoy our house. Also, you know, the sheltering in place forced everybody to look around and look at their home. We're all so busy and running in a million directions. I think a lot of folks stepped outside and said, whoa, okay, maybe it is time for a paint job, or man, that roof looks terrible, or I'm stuck at home. I can't stand to look at that filthy patio. Let's get that thing cleaned. So that being said, that's great. I'm still over here with if I had a million brands, that's all well and good. But there's a disconnect, right, between me, the service provider that can do anything you want, and then the homeowner that has all of these newfound desires and wants. How do I connect my services with their wants? And so I immediately put things in gear despite the loss of revenue, 2-month loss. I mean, it hurt.
Sure.
We have a big overhead, and we have a big overhead because we believe in marketing, and you know, that's one of the harder lessons in business, is how much to spend, or to be brave enough to spend on marketing and putting the money in the right buckets so that you can net a return. A lot of guys don't want to reach into their pocket, and so therefore their returns in business are modest. The phone just doesn't ring as much. You really have to put out to get back. And you know the numbers. You know, if you're putting back 10% of revenue, gross revenues, back into your marketing budget, eerily, and that's a lesson for all you entrepreneurs out there. If you don't know your numbers, eerily, if you spend on the front side, because again, you're fronting this. There's no guarantee the money's going to come back to you. But amazingly, if you spend $100,000 in marketing, let's say, if your numbers are right and you have your business dialed in, they'll do $1 million in revenue. And so if you want to do $3 million in revenue, you better find out somehow, some way to spend $300,000 in marketing. And quickly you realize, I can't find any other places to put this money. I feel like I've tapped all my options on verticals and marketing outlets. You know, I'm doing print ad, I'm spending money on pay-per-click on the internet. You got to figure that out and master that. So that being said, I just did a lot of deep breathing and trusted my gut and said, well, you know what? This is a tumultuous time, and not to be an opportunist, but I have to be a smart business person to save my companies and to save my staff. So we didn't lay anybody off, and I just kept plugging on marketing. In fact, I had the digital media manager go hot, fast, and furious, and he's just been pumping content. And then we've been boosting all of that content and promoting it with dollars, and it's coming back to us. So I took the risk, and you know, my thought was, it's a tough time. A lot of people are broken over this, or were a few months ago, and what better opportunity for an entrepreneur to hit the marketplace than when everybody else, when your competition might be suffering, dazed and confused, broke. You know, like, if they're not spending money, you better figure out a way to spend money, because you need to stand out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So we've been leveraging that. I mean, we're still off on the year, but we're plugging away. We got 4 weeks of production in front of us, and jobs keep coming in. So we've done something right, and little pat on the back to myself anytime I could stop to take a break. But we made the right choice. I guess the takeaway for the entrepreneur or the small business owner like me is keep plugging. You know, look for the upside in all of this. Don't get lost in the mire, you know, in the depressing reality. If you stop and think about all this, it's depressing, man. But life must go on. The show must go on. So you got to keep making moves. And the homeowners and the consumers are home. They're a captive audience, and they need us. They want us. So how are you going to connect with them? How are you going to bridge that gap? Your competition is either stifled or confused or shut down. So put it in gear. Don't be afraid. Take the chance and plug away more than you were before this hit.
Yeah, I think you make the right point. I think you're kind of glossing over. I know you know your numbers, and I know you know what marketing is working, what isn't working.
Well, thanks to you. Thanks to you.
Yeah.
You helped me a long way with that stuff.
Took me a while. I had to get a plug in there, but no, that's. But I know how you do, and that's you can't. It's not. I think it scares people to say, "Oh, I got to spend more money. We don't know what's happening." But if you're testing and measuring, I think that's the
Right.
key. And before you throw, you know, the marketing's changed, right? You can't use your old marketing. It's got to be more empathetic.
Correct.
You know, how can you? It's more about helping people than you promoting your sales or this discount.
Correct.
And I think that's what people have to understand is, and test your marketing first. Don't go spend $100,000 and just hope. Like, and I know you
Right.
don't, but I think the opportunity on marketing is huge. I think you made a great strategy there. Because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing those who kept marketing or actually put more money in marketing because they knew. Then they shifted the word. A lot of the words, the click, not, you know, that has changed. I've seen.
You know, how many times have you heard the word unprecedented?
Oh yeah.
Uncertain times. I mean, yes, it is. It is all of that, but it's everybody's using the same repetitive language in their ad space, and it actually brings pause. You know, you're like, well, how can I do this differently?
Yeah. No, and I think that's why you've been successful in expanding. So it's good to see that, you know, some businesses are still in shutdown and some are training. I say, you know, some are in just ramping up, but there's others like you
Right.
that are growing. You know, I mean, take an opportunity. There's going to be new venues, and that's why you got to keep looking at it. So, no, that's great. So I know, I mean, so what would you say is the biggest one piece of advice for business owners going forward?
So it's the oldest adage that we know in sales. I mean, basically, sales makes the business move, right? So it's sell or die. You can't take this depressing, very difficult, challenging, stressful situation and let it freeze you up like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. You have to keep moving. You have to sell or your business will die. If you take pause and say, I'll just take cover and bury my head like an ostrich and wait till this sandstorm blows over, you are in trouble, my friend. I mean, with the overhead we have, if we were to do that for a few months and lay people off and you start undoing all of these things, some of this stuff you can't put back together. You may lose your company. You have to learn how to morph and change and deal with the times and keep your feet moving.
Yeah.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
Unless you want to get out of business.
You got to plan the next. I'm telling everybody, just plan out the next 90 days and be real focused on it.
That's more than enough. That's
Exactly.
more than enough.
Exactly. Hey,
because it is uncertain, and we don't know what's going to happen in the fall.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Frank, I really appreciate your time. It's always great to hear, and I think
Tom, the pleasure's all mine.
Good
I love talking with
inspiration.
you.
Good inspiration for entrepreneurs out there. So.
Thank you, my friend.
You know, thanks for adding some of that, and it's great to hear. I've lost track of some of the businesses, so it was good to catch up.
Well, once you and I could actually, get in the same room, maybe we'll connect and powwow again. It's been a while.
Awesome, Frank. Thanks so much for your help, and I'll take care. We'll catch up soon.
Sounds good, my friend.